Great. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday, December 12th Permanent Public Building Committee meeting. And tonight we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main topics and a few other smaller topics on the agenda. We do have a quorum tonight, and I've got everybody tracked. And we are a virtual meeting, so we will follow the rules and the procedures we've been following all along these last couple of years with virtual meetings. And with that, I will open up the first item, approve the minutes from the previous meeting. And I would ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Recommend approval.
Thank you, George. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, I will come to the roll call for the vote. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Okay, great. One housekeeping item down. Okay, now we're going to go to the first of the main topics. I'll turn to you, Ken, I believe, the Public Safety Complex Fire Station number 2.
Yeah, I think we just have really all we have for that. Is there an invoice, Catherine? Or we did that last month?
I
No, we
don't
did that
see
last
any
time.
invoices.
No, there's no
Yeah.
invoices.
No, just a quick, George, I got to give you a mea culpa. Last month I had said that we had everything. I had forgotten Matt Toccio was riding herd on installing recording equipment in 2 rooms and finalizing some door controls through dispatch, which has not been completed yet. So we do have those items outstanding. Matt, I don't know if everyone has heard, but Matt is leaving the town. He's going over to Newton to work with the police department in Newton. So Deputy Chief Baker will be taking the lead on that. And I'm expecting an update from the guys at New Era. He said his email this afternoon said he'd have something in to us tomorrow with an update. From what Matt told me, he's waiting for some parts on the recording, and the reprogramming of the doors is about 95% done based on Matt and my conversation last week.
So what part of this is being done by New Era?
Yes.
I don't believe New Era was the original installers, correct? They're coming back out to remap things and work on the Sallyport doors.
No, this is well, I believe the Sallyport door is part of it, but this is programming that wasn't done. No one had it. It wasn't in anybody's scope.
So it's just recording equipment for a couple of rooms.
Recording equipment and some controls for dispatch over some 20-odd doors, I believe it is. And I'm scheduling a warranty walk for sometime the first week in January for the police headquarters side. That'll be the 11-month warranty walk that we generally do with the projects at the 11-month mark. So that's pretty much it for public safety, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions?
Do we have all of the warranty paperwork and has that been turned over to us so that?
Yes, yep, we have everything. We've got all the O&M manuals, all the closeout binders, et cetera.
All the training, et cetera, everything done?
Yep, all the training was done and recorded. So we have the recordings also.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, okay. I will then close this item down. So with the public safety item closed, we will, and thank you to the user community, Chief Schuttler and others who were part of the discussion. We'll now move to the Emery Grover, Ken and Hank.
Yeah. Hang on, I can share my screen here with my agenda.
And we have Michael and we have Ann, right? Yep, okay.
All right, little update on the two pieces of the project. On the Emery Grover piece, they're hoping to mobilize on January 3rd and remove the trees scheduled for that first week and put up the fencing. The trailers will come in the second week, and according to the schedule that came out, the first pass of the schedule they gave us, we're looking at substantial completion on 6/1/2024. M. O'Connor is working on the long lead time submittals now. The move from Emery Grove over to Hillside was awarded to Isaac's Moving, and we're on track to start the move process on 12/21. Melanie and I had a meeting with with Brad from Isaac's last week to go through some of the details, and they're scurrying around over at Emery Grove, packing stuff up, wading through their paper, throwing out stuff that they don't need, purging anything they have, and getting stuff boxed up to make it easier when the movers show up on the 21st. Over at Hillside, most of the work is substantially complete. On the sprinkler side, the water tap, we're hoping, is going to happen Wednesday afternoon. The sprinkler company was out today to put their underground piece in, and now we need the excavation contract to come back, dig over to the water line so we can make the tap. The only thing we're waiting on the electrical side, outside of the completion of a couple of circuits, is the panel doors for the 4 new panels. They're supposed to arrive, if not this week, Monday at the latest, but I'm not holding my breath the way things have been going. If need be, we'll put temporary doors on the panels in order to get a temporary inspection on it, which we're expecting to have. I put 12/19, but now I found that the sprinkler inspection can't happen until 12/19. So we probably won't get that temp CO until the 20th. Barry, the boiler, I know you were talking about E&E needing to get some stuff for the ventilator units, but has the boiler been all inspected and signed off on?
Barry, you're on mute.
Yes, we did get our tag for the boiler. Everything is up and running right now. We do have some control issues. The current platform is dead, and there's no backup for it because of its age. So we've asked E&E to come out and reload the entire platform on the new DAU, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them. That's why some of the blowers on the fan coils are not running. I mean, we have plenty of heat in the building, but we're not, it's not pushing it into the spaces, but the building is, warm because we do have heat circulating, but we can't get the blowers running on the fan coil units because of the controls. So just waiting on a schedule from E&E when they're going to be out to reload the DAU software.
Okay. And then the Phillips's electrical upgrade, did they get their final inspection?
They are done. I believe just right now, I think we're working with Eversource and Town Hall on the meters. But right now, yeah, everything's been inspected and approved. I have one thing that I need to do that didn't stop the approval, which is correcting the door swing because of the amp increase. The door has to swing out. And so that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay. Fair enough. And then the last item here is the LED light replacement, which won't happen until January after they're moved in. But Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said those guys will be working at night, so we shouldn't have an issue with them working over people's heads.
Yep, they'll be working at night. You'll never know they're there, or well, the school department will never know they're there.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions with the schedule on either piece? All right.
You want to move to the voting items, Ken?
Yeah, just a quick look at the ACL. We've got the louver that we had to add downstairs. We had a wall repair on some flashing we had to do where we took the modular connector off. And we had to get a new ADA threshold for door 101, which is the door that goes into the new IT space downstairs.
And Ken, on the ACL, those are the only 3 items, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because the finance sheet is all the way at the bottom, correct?
Yeah, the budget's all the way to the back.
Yeah. So I just wanted to confirm that when I looked
Yeah.
at it last night, that's the,
Yep.
is
Yes,
there
those are the
anything
only-
worth
those are the
noting
only
on the
3
budget at this point?
No, we move right along. We have not, we haven't come close to the 20%, using in the 20% contingency. I don't even think we're even at half of that. So that's a good sign. That leaves us more contingency for the main portion of Emery Grover.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, so we can go, we just had the two voting items.
2 invoices. Okay. Michael, okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to separate them because they're 2 different budget items. So I'm going to put forth the invoices for the Emery Grover, and the first one is for J.D. Cardosi, requisite 5, which is through November 2022, coming out of the general contracting budget for $250,391.11. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Just folks can put their hand up when we're displaying stuff on the screen. I lose pictures, so I won't see people wave. So either speak up or raise the hand button on the thing. And I don't see anything at this point. So with that, I'll move to the vote. Roll call. Richard.
Aye.
Yep, I hear it. George,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
Erwin,
Aye.
and Michael,
Aye.
and
Aye.
the chair is aye. Okay, last invoice is from BH&A for October 2022 services. Coming out of the architectural budget for $9,686.25. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Erwin. Any questions? Seeing none, hearing none, coming into the roll call. Richard. George,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
Erwin,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and
Aye.
chair is aye as well. With that, if there's no other questions on Emery Grover,
Just a quick one for Ann.
George?
Ann,
Yes.
are you guys all excited about moving out?
We are very excited. The place looks a wreck. Everybody's unpacking all of the ancient documents that exist everywhere and are attempting to clean some of those out before we prior to the move so that we don't take a lot of junk with us. But there is, I'm sure this effort is going to continue over the next couple of years. But people are extremely excited about the prospect of a new building. It's exciting.
Does some of those records have to be saved because they're public records?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We have to comply with a lot of that and lots of different links, different departments have different links and different kinds of records have different links. So we're on top of all of that. And but it's exciting to kind of clean up and clean out a little.
Are those records going to be stored elsewhere or are you taking those with you to the?
Everything's coming with us. The school department has just purchased a document management system. So we hope over the next 18 months to be able to digitize many of those documents so that they don't have to come back with us to the new building.
There,
Okay.
George, there are already 1.5 rooms that are filled with some of those documents. Came over early.
I see. Okay. I mention that because I think a lot of the town's records, when we moved from, from the town hall, are stored, I think they're stored at Dedham Avenue,
470, correct.
470. And is there a document storage system for the whole town? I guess that was my question or my thought. Is this part of that town records management or record storage system?
I think we'll have a lot to learn from the school department
Okay,
that we can share with the town manager.
okay.
So
Yeah,
way
I
to say
think
thank
that-
you for being a guinea pig, right?
Either that or we give it to Kim over at the library.
I'm not sure you want to do that either, but it ought to be all part of, I think it ought to be all part of one records management / storage system for the town.
Well, we certainly can have other departments piggyback on what we've just started, so.
Good.
Cool.
Very
Okay,
good.
and to close this item down, Emery Grover, before we go to the school master plan, if I can ask the committee, unless there's an objection, just to do one more voting item, Ridge Hill demolition, and then all the rest of the voting items will be within the agenda topics. If there's no objection, if I may, I'd like to put forth the Ridge Hill demolition invoice for Dorr and Whittier for November 2022 services for $2,250 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions? Seeing none, hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard? George?
Aye,
Lynn?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
And is there any user community group?
Barry,
Barry?
Aye.
Thank you, and the chair is aye. Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to get that off the list. Okay. With that said, if I can turn to the school master plan, Hank?
yes, thank you. And Michelle, are you there?
Michelle's, oh, and before you, sorry, an interruption again. Catherine and Hank, if you just could look at the attendees occasionally and just see if there's anybody in there that needs to come into the main meeting as we go into different topics, please address. Otherwise, we're fine. Go ahead, Hank.
Okay,
Sorry.
will do.
Yes, and we have Ann still. And Michael, I don't know if you have been
Yes.
officially appointed.
I don't know, but we will make sure that that happens, whoever has to do that.
All right. So we distributed an update at your request after the last discussion. And Michelle and Doran Whittier put together a one-page summary sheet, which we can share. Michelle, maybe you want to put that up on the screen.
I'll do that right now. Do I have sharing rights here?
You should.
You should. Okay.
And while
If
you're
not,
doing
I-
that, I would just like to say I appreciate the executive summary that was put together and this. I hope everybody had a chance to look at it. But obviously we'll have the chance to discuss it during this time. So thanks for putting that together.
Oh, you're welcome. Can you see my screen now? Is that summary on
Yes.
here? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
And I don't know if everyone has noticed, but this has been updated since it was distributed to you
Yep.
earlier.
Basically, you just added the assumes MSBA in the bottom, correct?
I
you're
did. So
breaking
it
up a
says,
little bit there.
I'm breaking up.
Maybe it's mine.
Okay, so it does say assumes the MSBA participation for each of these, but it also reminds people that the MSBA, any participation that they have has not been deducted from the numbers that we have.
Could you just magnify it a little bit, just on the
Sure.
bottom right? Yeah, just I think it'll be easier for folks. We
Actually,
go.
I can. There we go. How's that?
Yeah, I think that'll be easier for folks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hank, did you want to talk about these or did you want me to?
Well, as the last time, we discussed these 4 different options. And the numbers in bold reflect the updated cost escalation numbers that, as you recall from our last discussion, assumed a 6% cost escalation between 2020 and 2026. Anything outside of that window was escalated at the prior rate, which was 4.5%. And
We actually escalated to the year 2030. If it was bidding prior to 2030.
prior to 2030, sorry.
Yep.
And so option D, as previously discussed, is the least expensive and also the fastest solution to the problem. But the financing plan has yet to be coordinated and discussed with Finance Committee and Select Board and others. We hope to get some clarity on that later this week. We can repeat and go through each one of these options again, but I think that this single page shows a good comparison how option E, it takes the greatest number of years to complete all the pieces, whereas option D would be the fastest. Both options C and D would enable the Mitchell students to move into High Rock at about the earliest time. One would take 6 years, the other would take about 5 years, because they would be able to move into High Rock as soon as the 6th grade moves out of High Rock and into the Pollard School. Stuart, are there other details you want us to go through?
I was just gonna pick up on what Erwin said in the last meeting, or I recollect Erwin, which is, if I know that the MSBA funding in the options that are available, if you looked at A, E, C, and then partial D, if our funding, let's say it's 20%. I mean, no, it could be 28, could be 24, but we sort of have a number out there. If you looked at like 406 and you took 20% of that cost, that's basically 80 million. So that project could potentially be less than 406, somewhere in the 320 million range. Not guaranteed, it's just a rough broad brush. If you look at the D, and you can't fund Mitchell, but you can fund part of Pollard, maybe you're sitting at 320 million. So I guess what I'm saying, I think, Erwin, you can correct me, but I thought the last discussion, we sort of talked a bit about where some of the numbers actually could be a little bit closer, especially the ones that were way out there because of MSBA funding. I don't want to take Dave Davidson's job. I don't want to take the school committee's job, but just as a matter of interest, there could be some closer numbers as the financial stuff starts to move down the road.
You're assuming that MSBA would fund 2 projects back to back. That's not very likely.
Sure, but I'm just saying if that was explored a little deeper, George, you know, these numbers, I think what I'm trying to say is, and reemphasize is, these numbers are good sort of points to look at, but there's more underneath those numbers when all is said and done. I'll leave that to the financing team. Erwin, I know you have your hand
Right,
up.
but I
But
think,
could I make one statement? If you were to look at C and D, C would be the MSBA project for Pollard. And you can see the timeline extends beyond, and that's what you're paying. You're in your escalation, you're paying more money here because it's taking longer to get the project done.
Sure.
So if you look at those 2 projects, this is the MSBA project funded, and because it takes longer, that's the increase in cost. So whether or not you've made up that money from the MSBA over that extra 2 years, that's something to keep in mind when you're
Right.
looking at these.
Erwin?
Thanks, Stuart. Just to continue with your line of thought. So what I was wondering is there going to be some process? I understand the likelihood is probably low that they would fund 2 MSBA projects, but is there some process that would kind of feel that out to make sure that if that question was asked, we did in fact explore that? And that would then, if we felt there was significant chance that they would not fund both of them, then that would make even a stronger argument for option D. I just wondered what the process would be as these really C and D, I guess, are the 2 likely options. What would be the process and then refining if necessary for purposes of making a selection?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Anne, but in all prior discussions, MSBA has indicated that the Mitchell Elementary School would be the highest priority from their perspective. It was previously noted as the 2nd highest priority after Hillside when we went through the process the last time. I don't know if there have been any subsequent discussions with MSBA about the possibility of doing Pollard, but those discussions would come out when we, if and when we applied and put in the statement of interest.
They don't engage in hypotheticals. It's
Right.
kind of the way to put it. You really can't get them to say very much when you don't have a project on the table. The other item that should be considered here is that the supposition that Mitchell is the preferred #1 project is true, but it's based on assessments that the MSBA did about 15 years ago of all the buildings. So I think it's fair to say that you would have a conversation about that because things may have changed. Indeed, in our position, things have changed. The other consideration is that when you look at these first 2, remember that the MSBA doesn't fund temporary schools. And so there's, it's hard to do a percentage of these projects and make any assumptions, even being very cautious about MSBA's participation. You can't really look at the 406 and do a percentage on that. You'd have to take it apart to do that.
Hey,
I think. Go ahead.
I was simply going to add on to that in our conversations with the MSBA, they have said all of the things that both Hank and Michael have just stated. They did say, however, that although the statement of interest process is really a statement of problems with the school, when you are invited to the feasibility stage, they are very open to having discussions around out-of-the-box solutions. They are interested in lots of different problem-solving conversations, but you do have to be invited into the process.
So in essence, we would have to submit a request for whatever project we wanted funded, namely, let's say Pollard. And then we would have to sit down with them and discuss how we came to this decision and what the impact of all these studies are on our decision for that to be first rather than Mitchell. And that means opening up what, where all the schools are in the town and why it makes sense for us to go this route. I think you have to have a statement of interest that starts that conversation. But I think, Ann, you're right. It's important to do that to get the subject on the table. It doesn't preclude getting funding for Pollard. It simply means that we have to educate them in regard to how we came to this conclusion.
I think the statement of interest would be for Mitchell, and then you would have the conversation that Pollard solves the Mitchell problem. as that creative solution.
I don't, you mean, well, it depends on the scenario.
I'm not sure that,
Y-
well, that's a matter of judgment, I guess. I'm not sure that we would get their attention as much, but this is all strategy that we have to discuss. I don't think we'd get their attention as much as if we just
Well-
went in with Mitchell, because they would agree with that. And they might not be as wide open, thinking outside the box as we have.
Well, but remember, you sort of have to submit the project you anticipate doing. So in D, you would pretty much, I'm sorry, in A or B, you'd be submitting Mitchell because that's what we're anticipating. In C, you would be submitting Pollard, right? And you'd have to have that conversation with them once you're accepted. I'd also note that A, E, and C, all assume that you get into the process and you get selected in a fairly short order. The other advantage of D is that you have several years and you can be submitting a Mitchell project, a year or two in advance because you don't have anything in the queue in the hope of being accepted into the process because you have nothing outstanding with them.
Right. But at this point, it's not our job to develop strategy, but I think it's important for the school department and school committee to develop a strategy for what's most appropriate in terms of submittals.
Erwin?
I think this is a very good summary, though.
Yeah, I agree. All I'm saying is that that's just the base that I think needs to be covered at some point. So the question isn't asked, well, why didn't you try for Pollard and Mitchell? As opposed to just saying, well, we don't think it was very likely. I think just to have it addressed in some form would be helpful.
Are there any other questions? I do have a comment, but is there any other questions? Is there anything else, Hank and Michelle, you need to cover? Okay,
I think that the Doran Whittier summary was a very good summary, executive summary.
Yep.
And it also cross-referenced the school department website, which has not only the full master plan, all those documents, plus all of the presentations that have occurred from the time they started through to the most recent. And we had, as you may recall, the 4 committee meeting up at Powers Hall, where PBBC, school committee, select board, and FinCom were all present.
I think this summary, executive summary, should be distributed to all of those interested parties.
I agree.
Anne, can you discuss that with Dan? And
Yes, I've already initiated those conversations, so hope to conclude them when Dan returns this week.
okay, great.
Okay, good. So I think with that, Hank, and to the committee, the last discussion, the previous meeting, the intention of this agenda item was to bring to conclusion the school master plan at this point, not a conclusion of the project, but really of what all the work that's been done, create the executive report summary and the summary sheet, which now allows everybody to see the culmination of where we are in this project, or I should say this level of effort in the plan, and for the debate and deliberation in the respective parties, school committee, FinCom, and everywhere else. And I believe our role as a committee is now to hand this off from the respective of the content, but be ready and willing to engage as needed as we go forward. If there's no disagreement with that, the only final word I would put on the table is if there is anything that the committee wants to not necessarily vote on, but would like to make a statement relative to any of the positions. I think the last discussion we had, where we do not feel that we need to pinpoint one of them, nor are we in a position to do that, but we believe all 4 of these are very viable options and provide a level of opportunity for the respective bodies to determine what might be the best path going forward from a financial and everything else. Is there any further comment to that?
I,
From the
I
committee?
agree with that.
Okay. And the only question I would ask is if we feel as a committee putting money aside, is there anything in final of this topic tonight and this master plan as it goes off to the next step? Any of these options that would be better than another simply from a quality of building, a logistical management of the projects? Very broad question, but I just thought I would put it out there, and if we don't feel we can answer that, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I put that out there.
I don't think it's our role to make that choice. We've presented the options. We've presented all the information related to those options. All of these are viable options. And now we have to figure out both financially and strategically what we want to do with it. Obviously, we're part of the process, but our part of the process is once that strategic and those strategic and financial decisions are made, then we would get back into the process. I think we've done our job.
Okay. Erwin, I saw your hand go up and then go down.
Yeah, I was just a little confused. It sounded like you were saying we're not going to select an option, and you were kind of asking that we select an option. So I think I would just defer to what George said.
Fair enough. I didn't mean to make us select an option. I just thought, is there an option that based on the summary, it didn't know if there was any further comment around putting money aside. There were certain options that added that made it a little easier from a construction and a logistical perspective. And again, what I'm hearing is that's not worth the discussion. We've really got what we need. Just wanted to close that out with that. So fair enough. Thanks for the clarification. Sorry to confuse.
I would point out that the executive summary does spell out the opportunities and the constraints associated with each one of those from a logistical perspective. And we've already discussed, and it's noted here, that the 5-section school of Mitchell on the Mitchell site is a very crowded site. Probably too crowded for that more limited site. And the Pollard project has to be done with the building being occupied. And that offers a lot of issues associated with construction. So each of the options has its advantages and disadvantages.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you again. Very much appreciate from the last meeting to this meeting, putting together the executive summary as well as the summary page. I feel good that as a committee, we've really put something forward to support the discussions and the work that's ahead of the respective bodies. Okay. I will close down unless there's an objection, this item, master school plan, and ask that we now take on the topic of the theater sound and light study. Is that you, Hank?
Yes, and I'll, where is he? Brandon. I'll introduce Brandon Creel. He has been, was selected, Hushot International was selected as the designer for the project. And we had 2 very packed days of first walking through all 3 theaters and then meeting with multiple groups. And I might let Brandon briefly summarize some of the key points. We did distribute a summary, and there was part of the agenda that went around. And then after Brandon goes through that, then I can field any questions that you have.
Thanks, Hank, and good evening, everyone. Glad to be here. As he said, I'm Brandon Creel with Hugh Shot, and I'll give you a little rundown on what we've done so far, what the next steps are, and then happy to answer any and all questions. So in November, we did have 2 packed days. It started first with surveying the theaters in Newman Elementary School, Pollard Middle School, and Needham High School. After that, we did kick off this project with the steering committee. And then in the evening, attended Shrek rehearsal. That's the musical that was NCT was putting on at Newman. And then headed over to the band concert at the high school. So got to see existing conditions and actually how they're being used in a live event. The next day, which was Friday, then was when we conducted the focus groups, and we really heard the needs and the wants and the wishes and the pain points from all of the different people, from the school groups to the fine and performing arts groups, and even the community groups. So we gathered all of that. It was really a gathering exercise of information and primarily was listening. So we had pages and pages of raw feedback, kind of this uncompiled feedback. And the topics vary greatly from in scope and out of scope topics, but we just listened and we just recorded all of this. And then when we got back to the office, we then compiled it in a beneficial way that then it could be distributed and reviewed. So we presented that to the steering committee about a week ago, and there was a few revisions that we had to make. So we marked that up. So we're now up to date. And that's what Hank sent out as part of the agenda. So that compiled or that organized information is there. And that you'll see as you read it, we talked about first, what are the different types of room uses or uses of the space, which vary greatly. Yes, it's a theater. Yes, it has a stage, but we're finding that it's being used as a classroom. It's being used for gym class. It's being used for presentations in both internal and external groups. The list goes on. And all of those have different needs and the needs require subtle differences on the technology, specifically the sound and light, to support those activities. So at this point, we're now at the transition where we're headed out of the gathering or the listening phase, and the next step in preparation for the meeting on the 11th with the steering committee. Hugh Shot, we're going to put together our initial recommendations and options on where do we go from here. And that's really a threefold approach. First is, what are the immediate needs that needs to happen as soon as possible? What are the needs or what fixes do we need over the next, say, year or short term? And then the bulk of it is, where do we go in the long term? And that's also factoring in the master plan, specifically with Pollard. So that's what's coming just after the holidays. And with that, I think that's the brief overview. I don't know if Hank or Leanne or Ann, if you have anything to add.
And go ahead.
I would note that it was a very collaborative discussion involving all of the stakeholder groups. Very rich discussion, very, very thoughtful discussion that happened.
And also we touched on, Leanne, the fact that you've had to rent temporary facilities for the sound at the Newman and also at the high school, just to make those performances happen because of the failure of existing systems. So it's not as though it's something that is needed in the future. There are a few things that are needed immediately.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, this year specifically at Newman with the sound system, we're renting more than we ever have in that space. But across the board in past years, we've done rentals in all of the spaces to meet our needs.
And then I guess the other thing that Brandon just touched on, which were some things that are needs, but are potentially outside of the current scope. But we will come back and discuss that when we look at the PSS for some additional scope items that really have to do with urgent needs and assessment of existing infrastructure, namely the rigging.
Correct.
Any other questions? Leanne, any other comments?
No, I just appreciate that we're engaging in this process and echo what Ann said, in that I really feel like all of the stakeholder groups, both internally within the district and our community organizations, were well represented when Brandon was here for his site visit.
Excellent. Hank, do you want to move to the voting items?
Yes, please.
All right, there's two voting items. The first one is a PSS from Hugheshot International for PSS number 1 for the rigging inspection and investigation for $8,675 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. In terms of voting, we'll do a roll call. And you're a user committee, correct?
Yeah.
And anybody as Leanne also?
Leanne is, yes.
Yep.
Leanne
Okay,
is the
thank you.
voting person for this.
Oh, so Leanne's the voting person, not Ann?
Both.
Both, thank you. All right, thank you. Just want to be clear. Okay, great. With that said, if there's no questions coming to the roll call, Richard? George?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
And Ann?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Okay, great. Second and last item is an invoice from Hugheshot International for November 2022 services for $11,000 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. Okay, any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard? George?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Great. With that, if there is no more questions, done with the invoice, any last questions? I don't see anyone, so I will suggest we close the theater and sound light study topic and move to the library space utilization study, Hank.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate your help, and Leanne.
My pleasure.
And Ian. You're welcome to stay on, but you don't have to.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Night.
And I'd like to welcome Kim and Earhart. And this is your first committee meeting. You might get the opportunity to meet in person before we conclude this study. I thought it was helpful if you meet the committee. You now know that if you're late on the agenda, you don't have to log in too early. And the RFQ has been issued, was available as of the 8th. We will have a pre-proposal meeting coming up on the 14th. And the submittals are due on the 12th of January. I wanted to, first of all, ask if any members of the committee had questions, changes, recommended changes to the RFQ. Kim, I don't know if you want to kind of describe the scope a little bit, or I can walk us through that if need be.
Sure. So I can start a little and you can jump in, I'm sure. So hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. So we are looking at the interior space of the library. About 16 years ago, the addition was built and we've seen use change quite a bit. And so we're looking at things like, our quiet areas, our teen spaces, just how people are using the space is a bit different. And people are working from home a lot more, and that means more trips to the library to use our space for meeting rooms or conference, like small conference get-togethers. So we're hoping to explore, kind of just see what the designers come up with for how we could best use the space we have.
Plus, in the past 16 years, the technology of both moving from card catalog to all digital, the teen space currently has a lot of fixed furniture that doesn't really respond to the current need. If you visited the library after high school ends in the early afternoon, you'll see a flood of students. It's great to see them wanting to study. But I guess there's team study opportunities that are needed and other things like that.
Yeah, it's quite an open floor plan. And so it doesn't really allow for our quiet areas to stay quiet in afternoons and evenings, anytime that the teens are there, really. Even at their best, it's just a din of noise because whether they're whispering or not, there's just so many of them. There's quite a lot of volume, and only about, I don't know, maybe 10 people could squeeze into the teen room. And we're talking, 50 to 100 or more teens in there every day after school. So that's a large part of it. That's one of the bigger, more obvious things that I see coming out of this is a different teen space. And I think there are dominoes that fall into place because of that, like quieter areas for people to use, whether they're, a meeting room or not, will be kind of up for determination. But I definitely see a lot of it kind of being facilitated through making a different space for the teens. And I also want it to be a community space. Right now teens are coming here to study, which is excellent, but we'd like to offer more programming and just have them have a place that they feel a little bit more ownership of, and have kind of a teen advisory board, things like that, to help kind of get them involved and create like lifelong learners and lifelong library users. So that's part of the thinking here too.
And Erhard, I know that the library is also going through their strategic plan now. And I guess that's going to be wrapped up within the year or early in the spring.
Yeah, the strategic planning is ongoing right now. Kim is also plugged into that process and can give us any updates we have, because we've done a lot of the surveying and work, and I think we're now compiling findings at this point.
Yes, we are. And so we have a survey that's open still. If you haven't taken it, I would encourage you all to go to our website and take it. And that should be wrapping up, I would say, at this point, because of just my schedule stuff. This is going to probably push more into February. I think we were hoping for January initially, and it's very likely to be more February based now.
So in terms of the sequence of getting the designer on board here, I would like to, I don't know how the committee wants to handle this, if you want a subcommittee for interviews, Stuart, or whether you want to have the full committee do the interview. We have, I guess, 5 or 6 firms that have expressed interest. We won't know how many actually submit until the 12th. But I wanted to have that discussion since we don't have a second meeting in December.
I would yes, I think we need to have that discussion now and decide as a committee. In the past, given the size of the project, we have done a subcommittee. We've always done a subcommittee, but in terms of the subcommittee making a selection, I would offer up to the committee that we select a subcommittee, and that subcommittee does make the selection and decide if they want to interview or not. But let's put that on the table to discuss. I can get some input from others.
In Erwin?
Erwin?
I think that would be a sensible way to proceed. I think they have the ability and the knowledge to make a good decision. So I'm perfectly okay with the subcommittee handling the interviews and selection process.
Same as well. I would think, though, that there should be at least one member of the PVBC on that committee if possible.
Good. I saw Lynn nod her head as well. So if I can say that for you, Lynn. If
Yes,
and
agreed.
Roy,
I'm
not-
on board.
Excellent. And
It's fairly
Roy's
straightforward.
got thumbs up too. So I guess that if there is no objection, hearing none, then we should select a person from the committee to partner up with Hank and team to make that selection. And from your thoughts, Hank, is Kim and Earhart also part of that process?
I would think so, yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So I would ask for a volunteer, please, to participate in the selection committee of that. And before we do that, what is the time frame we think that selection review and selection process would be? That would be around just before the 12th, or?
No, the submittals are coming in on the 12th of January.
Yeah.
We would want to review them over that weekend. And then could either make a choice of one or a short list of 3. So that would be over the weekend of the 14th of January. Then I'd like to, Martin Luther King Day is the 16th.
That's the 16th.
So
yeah,
so that's a holiday. So we would inform the designers of the short list on Tuesday, the 17th. I guess we would have to have communication amongst us on the subcommittee on the 17th and alert folks of interviews, which would have to occur either on Friday, the 20th during the day, or I suppose could be even sooner than that. But we'd want to bring a recommendation of a ranking of the top 3 to the committee's attention on the 23rd of January.
Yeah, 23rd. Okay, great. So with that,
so some availability during the day on Friday, the 20th would be helpful.
Friday
That
the
would be, if there were
20th.
interviews, they'd be Zoom interviews.
I think they would be Zoom interviews, yeah.
okay. Any volunteers from the committee?
I'm happy
Okay.
to do it. but
Okay, thank you,
If
Lynn.
someone
Otherwise,
else wants to do it, that's fine too.
Yeah. If Lynn, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'd be happy to be backup. So let's do that. Okay,
Great, thank you, Lynn.
so Hank, that's be Lynn, Kim, Earhart, and you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Fabulous. Anything else in the library space?
It seems like we just finished that project.
I know. And Kim,
Time
that was
flies.
one of the what was the high school and the library is right in the same period, right, George?
Yes.
I think that's when I was.
In fact,
in
one of
middle
the reasons why we, Kim, just a bit of history. We weren't sure how many kids from the high school would actually come over to the library when we first opened it. We knew there'd be some that did, but we had no idea. It was realistically like, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
We didn't think that would happen, but it did happen. And
Yeah, my
so,
joke is that it's on the hill, and so they just roll down with gravity.
Exactly. But on our committee, I think there are probably 3 or 4 of us that were still on the committee back then when we did the library.
That's amazing.
So there's also some history that
history, I was gonna say, exactly.
you can pick our brain if you want to.
Well, George, that'll be very important because one of the things we will have to look at is whether we have whether the building as designed has the structural capacity to relocate some of the stacks.
Yeah, that may be an issue, but I don't
It's
think
gonna be
so.
an issue.
Uh-oh.
Well, yeah, it is, because we had to do some, without getting into detail, we had to do a lot of structural
Yeah,
design work in the stack area.
and it's super expensive, so you probably did it in a very compact area.
We did. Anyway, so you can draw on the historical records and the memory of the.
Who did
folks
that,
are
Ann
on our
Beha?
committee.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
she's, yeah,
Well,
I
that
can
sounds
ask
great.
for the structural drawings.
The Library Board of Trustees are really excited that we're getting to do this study and do it in tandem with our strategic planning. And so happy to be a part of that with all of you.
Good. Excellent. If there's nothing more, Hank. we'll
That's
close
it.
this- Okay, we'll close this topic down. Thank you. And we will look forward to the selection process and next steps in January. With that, if I could have the committee, we do have a voting item on the CAF space study. There's no voting item on the library space. So if there's no objections, I'd like to take care of that invoice now before we go to the next item. So I would put forth the CAF space study invoice for BH and A for October 2022 services for $9,750 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any user person here, Hank, for that? I don't think there is there?
No.
No. So we're fine with the committee.
Barry, yes.
Oh,
Barry's here.
Barry is? Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Barry and Tim.
All right, so I'm going to go through the roll call. Richard? Oh, hold on. Did I get a second? Sorry, I apologize. I don't think I got a second. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Richard. Apologize if I didn't hear that. I just want to make sure Catherine's got it as well. Okay, great. So if there's no questions, any questions? No questions? Okay. With that, I'll go through the roll call again. Richard?
Aye.
Great. George?
Aye.
Lynn?
I,
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Okay, thank you. I think that's everything, Catherine, correct? I don't see any other invoices.
I believe so.
Okay. With that said, we are done for invoices. We are now going to shift to the last item. Thank you to the user group for the committee tonight, which is the PVC business for vice chair, chair vote. We spoke briefly about it last time. Open it up if there's any other discussion, but we need to put the slate on the table, and that would be for this year coming.
Well, I would recommend that we continue with you, Stuart, as chair, and also continue with vice chair with the additional comment that at the end of this term, you would move out of the chair position and the vice chair would be prepared to move into that position. And at that time, we would nominate a vice chair to serve with the new chair at the end of 2023. That's my recommendation.
Others? Either another recommendation or a second into a motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any comments, consideration to the recommendation in the second?
I would just add to it that I think we need to be more proactive in identifying who might, I don't think we should wait till the end of the year next year and do this next year. We should make sure we know who is willing to raise their hand and do it. If there's anybody, is anybody rolling off? They're 3-year terms, right? So is anybody rolling off or is that a no?
I'm not aware of anybody rolling off.
Okay,
So the topic on the table is myself, chair, Richard, vice, and the ask is if we could, as a committee, identify a vice chair in waiting.
well, I would just say by
Just a
like some
rotation.
date. By some date, it would be good, like by October, if somebody raised their hand so that people could plan their lives effectively.
I'm fine with that. I think that's a good idea. We could simply ask for people to volunteer to rotate into that position now if we wanted to. It's our choice. In other words, identify the person now that would eventually be the vice chair at the end of the year. We have that authority as the committee to do that.
I would ask then if anybody from the committee would at this point step into a vice chair in waiting in the wings. There you go, Lynn.
Maybe it's just me, but I like to plan ahead, so I do
think
not
it's
want to
great. I think
volunteer
it's
for
great.
it.
I don't think it's
I
a
do not
formal
want to
vote.
volunteer for it, but it means somebody else on this group has to raise their hand between now and October and think about a transition. Because otherwise, next year we'll be saying, oh, we're kind of still in the same boat.
Yeah, I think we should do it sooner than October. I think what we should do is vote tonight for chair and vice chair, and then come back to this discussion in June, and seek a vice chair, and start that process as we go through.
I think that's fair. I like it.
I agree.
Okay. So I believe the motion, which is the recommendation, is that Stuart is being chair for 1 more year. Richard would be vice chair for 1 more year. At the end of the year, which would be next December, would we do January 1 or December, last meeting December? Richard would step into the chair, and then we find the vice chair in June through October to then go into the vice chair position. Did I do that right? I think I did it right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Everyone got it? Okay. Any questions, further comments?
Make sure it's on the calendar for June.
What?
Make sure it's on the calendar for June.
Yep, we'll make sure there's a June meeting, and Catherine will keep us honest for June, right?
Right.
Okay. And just to clarify, do we turn over the chairs at the last December meeting, or does it take over on the 1st January?
I think it's up to you, but I think many other committees do it the first of the year.
So why don't we stick with that? If there's no objection, we'll make that the first of the 2024 year. Boy, it feels like years ahead. It's only a year from now. Crazy. Okay, so I just modify that, Catherine, from the, and I believe I can put that forward as a motion, as part of that motion. Okay. If no further discussion, going once, going twice, we'll go through the vote and we'll go through a roll call. Okay, Richard? George?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. One thing we'll do, Richard, is we will make sure by June you have a proper headset. So in case we're still doing virtual meetings, you'll be able to be heard. Now, fortunately, we can see you, but I think if anybody goes back to the recordings, they might question whether we really got your vote or not, but we see you.
Do we have a budget for that? I'll chip in.
We need the IT group from the town to come in on that one. Okay.
We can find it.
Yeah. Okay. With that, that closes the PVC business as it relates to the structure of the committee. Is there any other topics? I would again like to emphasize if people could look at the calendar next year. It is December. We're getting closer to the new year. Make sure that all the committee meetings don't have big conflicts. Obviously, some of us will have vacations here and there, but I just ask to make sure that your calendar, you're lining up the meetings for the PVC. Also, with that said, I believe it's March again, where the temporary order expires, and we will be back to in-person meeting unless something occurs. So even more important to please look at your calendars after March to make sure that we're in town and can go. Now, if the state decides to extend it and we can run it, great, but I would plan on some more in-person meetings.
Stuart, I have a question regarding that.
Yep.
Assuming the state does say we have to have in-person meetings, would it be advisable to continue with a Zoom meeting associated with that? In other words, have an in-person meeting, but have, if a particular person is on travel, for example, and can't make that meeting, it would be helpful if they were there by Zoom, even though the bulk of the committee is in person. Is it possible? I don't know if that's ever been clarified. Maybe Hank, you know.
I don't know either, but I like that idea because I think it's better that we have everybody versus not.
It will come out, I think, from the state. I believe that hybrid will be allowed in the future, but it really is dependent upon what the state says.
It would just
And
make so much
as
more sense.
previously, it does, and also in some cases for the consultants, it's easier.
Well, they might have a topic where it's really important for them to be on the agenda in front of the committee, but it's only for 10 minutes at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And it would make so much more sense for
And they're
them
from New
to
York.
do that.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I'm being too logical, but hopefully someone in the state will also allow for hybrid meetings, I think, in the future as a way of life.
I'm sure that Teddy Eaton will tell us exactly what we need to do.
Yeah, we'll hear more as
Okay,
we get
great.
towards March. I hope they do it because I think it just encourages the participation the way the world works, but we can't answer it until we get closer to that. Okay. Any other open business for the committee? If there is none, then I will propose a close to the meeting because I think the Patriots are playing. I think we're all in New England, so it might be worth a few ganders at that game.
My whole family's facing me right here and I just keep giving them the look like, stop, don't yell.
Okay, all right. If there's no other business, I will put a motion to close the meeting out. Any objections?
And happy holidays to everyone.
Happy
Thanks,
holidays
everyone.
to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great
Have a
rest
good
of the
See
one.
you in the new year.
week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.